Aloha everyone, my name is Shannon Cristobal. I'm the director of Hawaii History Day Programming and K-12 Humanities programs, as Michelle mentioned. I am from the island of Oahu, and I'm calling you from the convergence of Mānoa, Kaimuki, and Makiki. So I'm like literally in the middle of three areas. So it's like a really busy street, and you guys were talking about the weather earlier. It's really actually same as Aiko. It's hot and humid, and I wish it would rain like it was, I don't know, in one of you guys mentioned it's raining in Virginia. Are you, yeah, Virginia or?
Yeah.
I also want to thank you all, the League of Women Voters of Hawaii County, Michelle, Mary, and President Helen Jimenez for inviting me to speak today to share a few stories of our amazing History Day teachers and students that really speak to why teaching and learning history via social studies curriculum is so vital to civic engagement. I'm going to switch to the next slide now. Okay. For those that are not familiar with Hawaii History Day, the Hawaii History Day program, Michelle mentioned a bit of it, but I'll go a little bit more in depth. Hawaii History Day is an affiliate of National History Day out of College Park, Maryland, and it's run by the Hawaii Council of Humanities. So myself and a team of staff and volunteers and historian consultants across the state. So we have, and this is actually, starting this school year is our 32nd year of doing History Day. We run the program out of 5 islands, which is Oahu, Hawaii Island, Maui, Hawaii, and Molokai. We reach over 8,000 students statewide. We serve public, private, charter, homeschool students, and teachers. As Michelle mentioned, we are a year-long program that serves grades 4 through 12 and is focused on history and civics education. It is theme-based and project-based, student and research-centered, that focuses on student voice. This year's theme is debate and diplomacy, successes, failures, and consequences. Every year there's a different theme, and last year's was communications in history, a key to understanding. So every year all the projects are theme-based. Students present their projects in 6 different categories: an essay, website, exhibit board like Malia, documentary, and performance. And what's special to Hawaii Island is that there's a 6th category, which is Olelo Hawaii, meaning we do projects completely in the Hawaiian language. And we are so excited for that program to be growing, but it started at Kaumeke Ka'eo PCS on the Big Island with teachers Mahialani Lono and her students. So with that said, I wanted to show you a video from, you met Kalihi from a bit, and she's going to share with you a little bit more about Hawaii History Day on Hawaii Island. It's going to be a short extra. I'm not going to show the whole video.
I started doing History Day since about 1994. So that will be about 27 years now. And it all started when our Hawaii District Social Studies resource teacher came to Waiakea High School presenting Hawaii History Day to our department. And so since then, our department chair and myself would do History Day. So I continue to teach History Day because it gives students the opportunities to learn something that they're passionate about that we might not cover in our content area. Students have been recognized for their hard work, and we'd like to thank sponsors that continue to support Hawaii History Day. And it even allowed one of my students to become a part of the Sacrifice for Freedom, which is a great learning opportunity, and she got to network with students from across the country and then participate in a week-long Pearl Harbor adventure. So that was a pretty unique experience. And we got to recognize a soldier from our hometown, so from Hilo, and she did an obituary at Punch Bowl honoring his service. Yeah, I think with Hawaii History Day, being involved with the University of Hawaii at Hilo where we have our district history day. Dr. Michael Bitter, he got his students involved with History Day, and he also opened up a partnership with our school. So if any of our students needed help, his students would be able to, provide some advice and guidance through the research process. It opened up the library, UH Hilo Library, because before we could never use them as a resource, but because of Dr. Bitter, we're able to go into UH Hilo's library. And that was a pretty neat thing to do because the public library is across town from us, whereas UH Hilo is right across the street. Because I do History Day with my freshman class, those that move on, they don't do History Day in social studies. So those that are passionate about history come back and do History Day on their own time. And to me, that is really special. This year, 2 other groups, student projects, are doing it as sophomores because their sophomore social studies teacher doesn't do History Day. So they want to continue. So they come back and ask me for help with that. So that's pretty neat. And I'm hoping that even after retiring, right, some of the students do want to continue. So I said I will be there to help, guide them through. Hilo is such a small town. Pretty much everybody knows everybody, or there's some kind of connection. And there's so much love for community.
So yeah, I wanted to share that video with you just to give you an idea of, with Kelly, all the work that she's done throughout this 26 years. And I gotta say that our program, without teachers, we wouldn't be, we wouldn't be here today. So I want to thank teachers like Kelly, Jonathan Peralto, Kira Horgan, Mahialani, that all are teachers on the Big Island and continuing to teach history, and which is connected to civic engagement. So I wanted to move on to what is social studies curriculum in Hawaii. We work with the state's DOE social studies standards, specifically the inquiry standards and literacy standards and beyond. So our program is rigorous when it comes to the standards, but we go more in depth, and that's the difference between the History Day program and just teaching and learning history, social studies in the classroom. So it's more than learning facts and names, but applying it to today and the future. How is learning history relevant to the students, to me, and how is it significant to the students and their community? They also have a component of being accountable to present their work at the district fair or at the state fair if they move on to the state fair. And I also want to share a quick story of a student that I met on in my first year going to the national fair in DC, Washington DC, and her name is Haley Evil out of Mililani High School. She did a project on the Delano grape strike, and she had not learned about Filipino history in class, but through this project, she was able to connect with the heritage, the history of her heritage, that sparked her interest to get more involved within her community. And so that community, that spark, is where we're focusing our attention now. Is how do we take that learning, like what Malia said, to learn, how do we get them involved in civic engagement? And that's about learning about the history and how to take that history and now move it into action, move it into getting involved. So this sets a foundation for strong civic engagement because the process asks the hard questions. And here are a few examples of those hard questions. If we made progress from the civil rights era, why is there still voter suppression? Does race, class, and gender matter? Or why is it that a 16-year-old must contribute and pay taxes, and if they work, and yet not old enough to vote? These are just a few examples of the kinds of questions students doing Hawaii History Day grapple with when working on their projects, or that they're now honing their critical thinking skills that they had attained from doing a History Day project. And now I'm going to connect what we do from History Day and the curriculum to civic engagement and education. The common belief or common definition of civic engagement and education is voting, participating in society, becoming an elected official, or learning how our government works. However, through Hawaii History Day, or just through civic engagement, we want to go deeper and learn why would they want to vote? How do we strengthen belonging and sense of community and the passion and power to affect change? Why would they want to participate in society or become an elected official? So those questions, we go even deeper. And what Michelle asked Malia, how can we get younger people involved in the voting? And there's also it's becoming relevant and understanding where they're coming from and what's happening in their generation right now. So that's why we're looking at how to connect to emotions, experiences, practices of care, connection, responsibility, and love. Love for community, love for your school, love for your family, love for your friends, because like you all know, there's connections to voting, right? There's different laws, different experiences. So we need to learn how to go deeper and how to teach our students and how to teach our students, the youth, not just why it's important to vote. Yes, that's important. And yes, it's important to participate, but why is it important? And so at the core of Hawaii History Day, we are committed and believe in the words of wisdom, malama our history, malama each other, which means caring for our history, caring for each other, which is why we had the vision to transform our district fairs to community events. And I'd like to thank, I know Aiko mentioned this already, but I want to thank the League of Women Voters for being part of our Hawaii District Fair in 2019 and creating an awesome interactive experience during our lunch hour, providing special awards for our students and teachers and providing food from donations from Domino's Pizza and Safeway. I want to send out a special thank you to Kit for going the extra mile. We're so grateful for you. Like, I know we were excited about your sharing, like, oh, I got this donation. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, because usually our students don't have anything to eat during the fairs, and we were wondering, like, how do we keep them on campus? How do we keep them engaged? And so that was one way, is the food. And it might seem like a minuscule or frivolous, but food is like a huge an important thing to keep students engaged. So I wanted to thank you for that, Kit, and for your guys' involvement with our last fair. And I wanted to move now to our Hawaii History Day Youth Council and civic engagement. So I'm going to connect how we take the students that are doing Hawaii History Day and their projects, and now moving it into really taking action and civic engagement. So we formed the Hawaii History Day Youth Council in 2020 during the start of the pandemic, as we wanted to connect and learn how our students were doing and what they were experiencing. We have representatives from each island, and for Hawaii Island, we have Elena Sun from Waiakea High School and Napua Kamakani Kalima Martin from Kaumeke Ka'eo PCS. Our next step for civic engagement is building leadership and voice and community with each other, starting with our students. When we first started the Hawaii History Day Youth Council, from our first few meetings, our students were unsure about their passions and how they wanted to contribute, but we inspired them by showing them videos from our Just Futures project, a project run by our community partner, the Civic Education Council. We shared this video with our students, and it lit the spark that inspired them to share at our first event in April called Let's Make History Together. So I wanted to share with you this video that we shared with them, and you can see why they got inspired, and we can talk a little bit about it after.
Ever since I was a little kid, I've always loved the ocean. I would go there every day, whether it was for spearfishing, snorkeling, scuba diving, bodyboarding, you name it. I loved it. As time went by, I also came to realize that there are problems with the ocean. One of those problems were the little fruity pebble-like things that I saw on the beach. And as it turns out, those fruity pebble-looking things were pieces of plastic. And so I realized that I needed to do more. And that's when I turned more towards advocacy. Currently, I'm taking on climate change through this organization called the Hawaii Youth Climate Coalition. And our goal is to take on the climate crisis through just and equitable means.
So I first heard about Dyson Chi through his work on protecting the environment, specifically our oceans. And I thought how amazing it would be to have him be a part of our campaign.
The reason why I got involved with Kim Coco's campaign is because I wanted to make a difference in my community.
One of the most important contributions Dyson made to our campaign was to write a letter to parents to help them think about the legacy they were going to leave to their children and grandchildren. And it was so touching that people actually wrote back to let him know how hopeful they were for the future of our democracy because he was so involved.
The issues that are afflicting this community, they've been afflicting it for a long time. And my generation is seeing this and we're saying it's time to take matters into our own hands. And so we need a new generation who's going to have a different mindset and can solve this problem instead of continuing to perpetuate it. My attachment to the ocean, it's one of the core reasons why I decided to stay here initially. And that love for the ocean continues to power me to turn Hawaii into a better place. So that way our children can enjoy the same oceans that my grandfather reminisces about. We want a sustainable future. And sustainability, not just in the environment, but economically sustainable. We want a future that's just, where the people who are born and raised in Hawaii actually have the opportunity to stay here. And I urge every youth, every person living on Oahu to strive for the same goal, because together we are stronger.
There is a series of videos on our website that I wanted to show you. So this is our History Day Youth Council website or web page, which has these videos that one of the videos that I just shared with you, Dyson Chi, but there's more if you want to take a look at these. We shared one video every week to the students and they just was amazed. And what was from this one video, from Dyson's video, the students, let me just go back, sorry. The students were not, the first reaction was they felt both intimidated and also inspired, but they were trying to figure out like, how can I make a difference too? But what really inspired them was they were saying that he was doing all this during the pandemic, like, and they were at home sitting on their couches, watching, doing different things. And they thought, oh my gosh, so I can still make a difference even during a pandemic. So that's where they started thinking of different ideas and of ways to make a difference. And we've been working with them on different projects, and it's actually, if you go to our website, you can see this is one of the events I was telling you about. Let's make history together. And you can see their Padlet. There's a Padlet where they have all the students compile what they're interested in, because we're running to really find out where the students are, where are they, what are they thinking, what are they feeling, what inspires them. And then we also had an ice cream social / seed planting session this past summer to also continue the conversation about what they want to do with those interests. Like here on the Padlet, you can see, keep trying and have confidence in yourself, stepping out of your comfort zone, change can happen. This one that says, make a plan, educate yourself about the issues and history, and then stay committed and not backing out. So these are like just ideas. And so from these two different events, now we're gonna take it to the next level in this coming school year. And we hope to continue to inspire and grow their leadership skills, their voice, and really take action. So I also want to show you one, a short compilation video of a few of our History Day Youth Council members, Elena, Koa, and Mar, speaking at our Hawaii History Day State Fair in April. They spoke about what Malama Our History, or making history together, means to them. And I hope this leaves you inspired and ready for action. So let me just share that video with you. very short.
Ai komoku o ke ave ai komoku o mano kalani po. Velina mai me ke aloha ya kako a po. O wauno o nā pua kaumakani Kalima Martin. Aloha mai kako, I am nā pua kaumakani Kalima Martin. And Malama, our history to me means that actions speak louder than words. And to perpetuate and respect our aina, community, mapua, kupuna, and all of our other mentors. So all of their ike is never forgotten.
To me, making history together means doing something special or significant with others that would have a long-lasting impact on your community.
To me, making history is taking a stand for what is right, raising a ruckus and fighting for change. We may feel lonely sometimes, but we are always part of something larger, bigger, and greater than ourselves. Making history isn't a one-person job. We as a collective do it together.
With that said, I want to thank you all for having us, and I'm opening it for questions or anything that you want to ask. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This is really a great experience for me. I really learned a lot. Thank you, thank you, thank you. One of your comments pertained to commitments or comments about 16-year-olds. And so if we could just have a little diversity here, one of our questions would be, Malia, can we get your opinion about whether or not students should be able, or individuals should be able to vote at age 16 rather than 18? Could we get your opinion on that, please?
Sure. So I actually wrote an essay on this topic back in March or so. And I was for lowering the voting age to 16. I really think it would be good to do. And actually, when they've done it in other counties or other countries, they've observed a higher voting rate than other age groups as well. And I agree with the fact that 16-year-olds are able to drive and pay taxes and work, but they aren't able to vote. And I think that kind of goes against, for example, like no taxation without representation, that kind of thing. As well as when the voting age was originally lowered to 18 from 21, it was because 18-year-olds were able to fight in the war, but not able to vote. And I think that kind of has similarities here. Not as drastic as a war, but I do think we should lower the voting age to 16.
Is your essay available to us?
I think I can share it, but it's on my old school account. So I'm not sure how long I'll have access to it because we've just started transitioning to a new school account and I think they're shutting the old school accounts down, but I can definitely try to share it with you.
Well, it's certainly an issue that I think is relevant for Hawaii Island at this point, and certainly the state of Hawaii, right, Donna? That was one of the issues that came up. We had another inquiry, and that's from Nina. Would it be possible to have a copy, Shannon, of your PowerPoint slides to share with schools that are not yet participating? Do you have a comment on that, Shannon?
Sure, of course. I could email that out to you all, and I can actually put the link in the chat also.
That would be great. And I'm not sure if we had other comments. There weren't too many chat questions, so I'm curious to know. And Kit, I wanted to say thanks for that food. How did the League of Women Voters get involved? Was that due to Rosemary's leadership or Kit's? Does somebody want to comment on that? Or Shannon, do you know that background?
Yes, Michelle actually mentioned she met with Aiko. Maybe Aiko, you can share that connection because you were the one that met with Michelle at that event.
Yeah, I think Michelle was going to unmute too.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But to repeat, I remember, Shannon, if you want to share, we've been running this contest for 30 years, and we want to make the events more of a community event, so that you know, it's not just you go and you compete and then you go home, but you go and compete and do all that, but then also your families can be there, other community members can be there, organizations, museums, librarians, anyone can come and be there and celebrate like what a beautiful thing that we're doing, passing on these kinds of stories and sharing them and presenting them back to the community. So for you folks to support us in that way and to bring the food, I mean, you can't have a community event without that. And so I know when Shannon met with Kit and Michelle and Rosemary, I know you were there at our last in-person event there. Shannon came back, she was so blown away. She's like, wow, look, they did all these things and it's our dream come true. Shannon, if you wanted to say anything more.
You said it all. Yeah, I was just amazed, like with the energy, Michelle and Kit, and yeah, we were excited to start it. And I think it's with your involvement, it's one of the examples that we're trying to continue on the other islands also with the community involvement. So you are our shining light.
And there is a question or comment here from Kit. Would it be possible to link members of the HHD Youth Council with the League of Women Voters so they can receive notices of voter registration and education events?
I can check with them and ask. Yeah, I need to get permission because there's a, I'm sure you're aware that there's a underage yes, rules, and I'll get in touch with them and their teachers to see if we can get that permission.
I think one of the key things, and I think I may have mentioned that to Malia, is the importance of vote411.org. And Malia, were you aware of that before I shared that with you?
I was not aware.
And especially if 16-year-olds might want to vote, to be able to get that information. And also the League of Women Voters, thanks to leadership from Donna. Donna, go ahead, vote411.org, right?
Yeah, it's an online voter registration and information, all one-stop shop. And we do contact everyone who is running for office to ask them to participate. It's Hawaii County does the lion's share of the work. We do this for every candidate in the state. So Hawaii County, Honolulu County and City, Maui County and Kauai County, we contact by phone every single candidate, which are hundreds of people. We'd be happy to have more help with the phone calls. So if any students would like to speak to some of these candidates, and it's a very eye-opening experience, if they can call locally, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Donna. And there's a question here from Michelle. Shannon, what's your impression of views towards civic education and voting among the diverse schools and communities across Hawaii Island? Can you speak to that, Shannon, please?
And actually, Aiko as well. And another related to that might be, how does Hawaii Island compare with the other islands? I know definitely, for example, Dyson Chi is on Oahu, and there's that, there are differences. So I'm just interested to hear as a statewide program.
Well, from my perspective, working with the different teachers from across the Hawaii Island, and I got some feedback from them also. Right now, civic engagement is a big push in the DOE, but when they say civic engagement, it means different things. And so I know I was part of another group that is looking at that, and that's how I came up with the different information about what is the common definition of civic engagement, and then how did it tie in back to social studies curriculum, and that's why we're trying to again going back to like voting, like participate. So it's more like in U.S. history, becoming like an official. It's more about learning about how, like you said, how the government works. Those are the usual classes, but then now we're trying to go with this more inquiry based, and that's what the social studies standards are looking at. Deeper questions of how does it connect to the students. I have the standards actually, and I can share that with you also. But so yeah, that's what and maybe Kelly can also speak to this. I'm not sure, Kelly, are you still on the line? But if you can share, I know from the from Kira Horgan, she's at a private institution, but they use student government and they look at the judicial system. That's how they study civic engagement, more on the textbook side and not more on the community side. So I think they're trying to move towards that. But that's a private school, and that's different from DOE. So DOE is still working through some things. So I don't know if Aiko can share more on that, because you've been talking with the different leaders in the DOE.
Aiko, do you have a comment on that?
Sure. Yeah, there's a newly, well, Shannon's referring to that I get to sit in sometimes on this committee for civic education that's connected to the Judiciary History Center. And it's really exciting. There are different administrators there. And we had a conversation about what is civic education, what is civic engagement. Some of what Shannon shared in her presentation, I think was really helpful. But as to your question, trying to compare different places and different islands, I don't think I'm an expert, but I feel and have a sense that if the community already feels strong, and I think we see this more in rural communities and smaller communities where people know each other and have a sense of their own history, less so I think in urban places or city places, and where there's more new folks and it's harder to feel connected. I think if the community feels strong, then that sense of responsibility to my community and I have the power to do something is much stronger. So I think we have so much to learn that I think we all throughout Hawaii have so much to learn from small, strong communities. And there are many on Hawaii Island. I think also we have so much to learn from young people, from you, Malia, and your peers, because whenever I'm around young people, and I remember being like this too, there's so much heart and so much yeah, I can change things. Yes, I can solve homelessness. Yes, I can make a difference. There's this energy and belief and clarity. And so I think we have to be careful. It's not oh, we got to teach all the kids civic engagement. I think we all learn from each other and feel very inspired and energized by that kind of energy and conviction that youth have, that we can change things and we can make a difference.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
And Kelly mentioned in the chat and that's the class I was mentioning, is Participation and Democracy is a class that's taught across the state in the DOE public school system, but also in the private schools. There are different types of classes that teach democracy at the sophomore, not at the freshman, but more sophomore, junior levels. And then yes, her students take it in their junior year.
Any other questions or comments? If not, please join me in thanking Shannon for giving this talk. And yes, I'm going to check your website out. I really, really appreciate it. And I know that some of you are extremely interested in civic education. And I just want to say thank you for those of you who made this connection. So I think that's Rosemary and Kit and Michelle, correct? Did I forget somebody? So thank you, thank you.